This episode of Gather and Go is sponsored by the Malta Tourism Authority. Malta is living evidence of the 2,000-year-old history of Christianity from its origins. Visit Malta to explore more history on a pilgrimage and learn more at visitmalta.com. All right, everybody. My guest today has been a tourism marketing professional for over 18 years. She has spent her career promoting travel to destinations throughout Georgia, working with the Georgia Department of Economic Development, as well as visitors bureaus in Lawrenceville and Clayton County. Today, she's the executive director of Visit Milledgeville, where she oversees the organization's operations, budget, and staffing. Rebekah Snider, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Brian. Really appreciate you having me today. I am a huge fan of Gather and Go.
It means the world to me. I'm so glad to have you here. You and I figured out that we have crossed paths way back early in our careers, kind of come up through tourism sort of in the same time period. And I'm really excited to talk to someone who I knew as kind of a young up-and-comer and who's now a leader in tourism, because I think there's a lot of us who, lo and behold, we are kind of in that mid-career point in life, and all of a sudden people expect us to know stuff and to be competent at stuff and even have to sort of lead other people, which is what I really want to focus on today. So can you kind of, for people that haven't met you before, tell us how you arrived at a point in your career where you're actually leading people?
Sure. I think a lot of fantastic mentorship and a little bit of dumb luck as well. I ended up in this industry after interning with the Chamber of Commerce. And 18 years later, I think it's safe to say that this is definitely a passion field for me. I spent the first 11 years of my career really working on the marketing side. And through that time, I gained a lot of great mentorship with some of my prior bosses, some of the relationships I had on boards I served on. And I was fortunate that when my predecessor retired from her position, she and I had served on several boards together. And she really encouraged me to pursue an opportunity as the executive director and leader for Visit Milledgeville. And it has been incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, that's amazing. I wonder if there are some traits of those mentors that that meant so much in your career that you can look back on now and say, the way that person led me in this area or the way they encouraged me in that ended up being so formative to who I am today and how I, represent my area today.
Very much so. And I think one of the things that I'm very conscious of is a lot of my team is very young and new to this industry. And I look back at how my mentors really really fostered my passion for tourism and how they took the time to just really invest in teaching me the tools that I was going to need and use. Things like STR, things like understanding budgeting and what it means when you're looking at a profit and loss sheet versus a balance sheet. Things that were not necessarily a part of my role or function at the time as I was invested in marketing, but things that I didn't realize at the time that I would be pursuing later in a leadership role and be so incredibly grateful for.
Yeah, that's great. It is interesting how few of us were ever taught to read a balance sheet in college, right? You didn't learn that in your marketing courses, but yet here you are. And I'd say most leaders, certainly have to deal with finances of their organizations in addition to so many other things. You work with boards, you work with community, you work with employees. So you're almost leading in a 360 degree direction, right? I mean, you've got a whole lot of different people to think about.
You really do. And, I will just share that, in reflecting on my time leading, I have really realized, I read this quote that somebody had shared that was talking about how many leaders enter not necessarily being prepared for leadership, but that they were hired into a leadership role because they were good at what they were doing prior to that role. And that resonated so much with me. I feel like I kind of lucked my way into a leadership position, but once I got here, I realized, so much of my career and so much of my foundational education was vested in marketing and not in leadership. And it really has challenged me to pursue educational opportunities and relationships that would help me grow my own leadership understanding and success.
Yeah. And that's so much better than the other way some people go when they get promoted to that leadership role because they were good at, a certain skill, and then they never get better at leadership. And so you end up with one of those, what do they say? People rise to the level of their incompetence, and you don't want to be that kind of leader for sure. So, uh,
Yeah.
has there ever been a time since you started, really having to lead, that you've struggled with some imposter syndrome? Like, oh, these people are looking at me to be a leader and I don't feel like one.
Oh, definitely. When I joined our team, now I was 33 years old and I had a team of 20 people,
Wow.
and the closest person to my age was in their 50s.
Oh, wow.
And I realized they had so much more leadership experience, so much more industry experience, real life experience than I had at that point in time. And interestingly enough, on my third week on the job, a man robbed a bank here in town and
Oh,
came
no.
to, yes, came to hide from the police here at the visitor center.
You're
And I
kidding.
think there, no, it was so wild, once in a lifetime. Like, we're the sweetest, most charming community, totally unexpected and out of the blue. And I think that day really showed me 3 weeks into the job, I was now responsible for an entire team where I needed to think about things that were completely outside of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And that at the end of the day, I was responsible for keeping our team safe.
Mm,
And while that situation resolved itself in the best possible way for the worst possible situation,
mm,
I think it really showed me very early on the challenges of leadership and the responsibility that comes along with leadership, and some of my lack of preparation for that space. But it also gave me a drive to be able to get it right and to do it well, because I do care very deeply about our team and our success.
yeah. So after something like that happens, or you kind of have this eye-opening moment of like, whoa, I need to level up a little bit. I need to, broaden my skills, learn some things I don't know. Where did you turn? What were the resources that really helped you develop those skills?
Sure. So I've devoured a lot of resources over the years. Just really thinking back to how I felt like I had built knowledge when it came to the marketing side, where I did feel like I was somewhat skilled. And how did I transition that kind of thought process and education over into the leadership space? I definitely have leaned very heavily on mentors. So much of, whether it's a staff meeting agenda that I was gifted from Augusta, or emergency management procedures, which came to me from Macon. I've definitely gotten by with a little bit of help from my friends.
Mm,
I've also spent a considerable amount of time reading books. Right now, I am reading Bob Iger, who is the CEO of Disney,
yeah.
his Ride of a Lifetime. I really love, he talks so much about quality and integrity in your work, and just about acquisition and growth. And I'm really enjoying that. I've also spent a lot of time listening to podcasts. And
Yeah.
one of my very favorite podcasts is actually the Andy Stanley Leadership Podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. He has so many wonderful CEOs from all across the country. And I have really learned a lot of really valuable lessons in listening to that.
That's such a coincidence. I literally listened to his latest episode yesterday in the
No,
car on the way to work.
right.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, and I believe he's one of the people. There are certainly others who like to say that leaders are readers, right? And your experience kind of exemplifies that. And I meet a lot of young people who are like, yeah, I don't, books are not for me. I'm not into it. And I think, one day you're going to change your tune on that, because you're going to be in a position where you need to learn something, and a book can really be the best way to do it.
Well, I think, Brian, leadership has really reminded me a lot of my journey in parenthood,
Mm,
where there are so many joys, but there are also a lot of challenges. And just constantly being on the lookout for resources to make sure that you're doing the best job possible. And I think for me, I'm an avid reader anyways, but I
yeah.
think for me, reading has really been a great resource in building my own leadership knowledge base.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, you mentioned parenthood, and that is a great segue into something I wanted to talk to you about because you have a multi-generational team. When you're leading in your home, you're leading a multi-generational team. You've got your spouse who's close to your age. You got kids who can be much younger. You might have to manage your parents and their expectations for what your family's going to look like. So there's a lot of multi-generational applicability there. Tell us about kind of the composition of your team. You said when you came in, a lot of people were older than you. Is it still the case, or how has that team evolved to reflect the spectrum of ages in the workplace these days?
Sure. Our team has evolved. Our youngest staff member right now is 20 years old. Our oldest
Wow.
staff member right now is 80 years old.
Wow.
So it is a very diverse workforce when it comes to age. And I think that in dealing with such a multi generational workforce, I have found a few different things to be successful. One, recognizing that at the heart of it, we all kind of want the same thing at the end of the day. We all want to go to a job we enjoy. We all want to go somewhere that we feel respected. And we all want to work somewhere where we feel like people have compassion and empathy for us. We've
Mm,
walked a lot of journeys in those multiple generations, whether it's been weddings, new babies, divorces, the loss of parents, a spouse that might be incredibly ill. We are walking a lot of things together in our 40 hours a week.
mm,
And in looking at that, I think that, the commonality among all ages is we all want compassion.
mm,
But I think the thing that I have found that separates us a lot of times is communication style. We all need to be communicated with and listened to, but we just, in fact, self evaluated our team in the last week and looking at what people's personal communication style preference is, because that is very different depending on what the generation is. And I think as a leader, as I look at how do we best lead this team, it's recognizing to not all two people may need the same form of communication and may need the same form of technology, so we work to adapt where needed.
yeah. I want to talk more about the communications thing, but it struck me when you were, describing the generations and how you lead them. You didn't say, well, I give everybody my expectations and my KPIs, and then we have accountability meetings, and then we have reviews, and I have this kind of level of expectation. You said people get married, people have babies, people get divorced, people lose loved ones. Do you take sort of a person first approach to people, like you are a person with a personal life, and how do you interact with that person through those things in their personal life that not everybody wants to share at work?
Mm. I really think so. In terms of looking at even professional development, like I'm reading Simon Sinek's Good Leaders Eat Last"
Yeah.
right now, which is about servant leadership, which I think is a passion of mine. In recognizing that at the end of the day, we don't know what people are carrying when they walk into our office. And while KPIs and strategies, goals, and tactics matter, of course, as an organization, and I think we'll get into some of that maybe later.
Yeah.
Um, I think we have to connect with the heart of who someone is first a lot of times. And, I think to me, it is very important that our team feel like their personal and professional needs are being met within our organization. And I will say, I feel that need to give grace because I was given that grace.
Mm.
I have two boys. One of my boys arrived at 28 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
And my time at the Department of Economic Development, they showed me such grace and such compassion. And I think it has only shown me how that when you extend that same grace and compassion to the people that you work with, they want to work harder for you because they buy
Mm.
into the support that you've given them.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. So, on that topic of communication, you've got a 20-year-old, you got an 80-year-old. If you need to get everybody on the team, filled in on some new event that's coming out, or a policy change, or something everybody needs to know, what is your strategy for communicating that in a way that is going to register with people all across that generational spectrum?
We've tried a variety of things. I mean, sometimes, honestly, it's pulling our entire team together in person to communicate. If it's something as impactful as policy change, we tend to do that in person with our entire team, just because I feel like that also opens the door for people to ask questions.
Hmm.
I feel passionate about transparency, and that when we are transparent and clear with our team members in the way that we communicate, it has helped in my office. It has helped people buy into our greater vision.
Hmm.
But then for simple things, we might email out an update across the board, but we do recognize that there are some team members that may need an additional phone call to realize that they have an email sitting in their phone box or in their inbox. And, like, that's okay.
Yeah.
We gain so much from having a multi-generational workforce that I feel like those little tiny things that might cost us some extra time are worth it for the experience that we gain.
Yeah, that's really valuable. So, any leader does have to spend some time setting expectations. If you don't, you have chaos, right? And you don't achieve your mission. So, what is your approach to setting expectations for team members? Do you tend to have the same expectations across the board for everybody? Are they really sort of customized to the person? Is there flexibility? Does it evolve over time?
I think it's all of the above. I
Mm.
think that there are some things that we set as a baseline. As a team, we work together to strategize for each year as it comes upon us. We set goals and tactics so that we can stay on task and on time. We usually work together, whether it is a monthly collaborative between certain team sets or whether it's a quarterly check in to make sure that we are in line with our goals and tasks. But, honestly, we've found that to be very successful. I have found that, people want to succeed at work. No one wants to be doing a bad job.
Mm.
And I think that when we are touching base and when we are connecting regularly and creating clarity, we find success.
Yeah, I love that. Now, again, every leader sooner or later is going to have a tough conversation with a team member, give them some correction, hold them accountable, hold their feet to the fire, and hopefully, give them a vision that is going to put them back on the path to success. I'd love to hear what your approach is to that, and if you have some examples of times where you've done that and the outcome has been the best it could be.
One of the things that I found on my leadership journey is Dave Ramsey has a process that he calls the pathway to performance.
Hmm.
And thank you, Dave. It's helpful. But, when we get into situations where maybe our expectation is not aligning with the performance that we're seeing, we kind of lean on that pathway to performance. And really, I feel like essentially what that is it's just individual communication. It's a one-on-one to truly talk about what are our goals, how are we reaching these goals, where do our tactics need to change, and then honestly, in any relationship, there are two sides to every story, right? And I spend a lot of time self-reflecting as well. Have I been clear? Was I holding the person accountable in the correct way? And recognizing, sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no. And that we might need to adjust based on some of that self-reflection as well.
Yeah. What is what's an example of a time where you have realized like, oh, this person maybe didn't perform what I expected them to because I didn't make it clear what I expected?
Yeah. I mean, I think that is something that, especially in my early days, I learned pretty early on. We had a new position that we had opened on our team. And I think that person really wanted to succeed. And I think that I just was not being clear enough about what I considered the path to success being. And when we clarified that piece and really created some tactics around how we were going to achieve our goals, we actually performed so well that we had to soften that up a bit, because again, I think most people want to be succeeding. Most people want to be achieving what you're asking. I think it's just recognizing the way I may be asking may not be the way somebody is understanding what they're listening to. And communication is about more than just dictating something to someone. It is about listening to what they have to say in response and making sure that the comprehension is there.
Yeah. So you can say it 3 times, but unless they can say it back to you in the same way, you may not have succeeded in communicating, even if you think you did.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, of course, there are going to be times when it just doesn't come together with that person. And it can be for all sorts of reasons. So, in situations where the correction didn't take, the path to performance wasn't enough to get them back where they needed to be. Number one, how do you personally handle that? Because that's tough. How do you prepare yourself for saying, all right, I'm going to have to go have one of the hardest conversations that someone has ever had? How do you psych yourself up for that?
It's really tough. It's really emotional. I have had to let go of 4 people in my time in leadership. And every time it is very impactful to me personally. That is never the conclusion that we want to come to, but sometimes it is our reality. And I think that what I've learned is as long as we've enacted the pathway to performance, I am a firm believer in people should not be surprised to be let go.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's been a tool that's helped make sure no one is surprised. But also, that when that time comes, that we do that in a way that is respectful, in a way that is private, in a way that is quickly ripping that Band-Aid off as well. Because I feel like we don't draw that out with our team out of respect for them and out of respect for the fact that they may need to seek work quickly elsewhere. And I will say we've been able to maintain really good relationships, even with many of the people that we've let go.
Yeah. So, what's the key to that? Because so often you let somebody go and then they're bad mouthing you around town or whatever, and that it's kind of the worst case scenario. So, how do you let them go gracefully and still be friends and they hug you on the way out the door?
Mhm. I think a lot of times it's in the fact that they recognize it's not coming as a surprise.
Mm.
It's been a lead up where we've been defining things that have been maybe issues or goals that have not been met. And I think, a little bit of like seeing that writing on the wall. And I feel like at that point, people can usually respect the decision that we've had to come to. And sometimes even agree that, yes, maybe they are better suited to something else or serving elsewhere.
Yeah. My my intuition would be that most people who are about to get let go know it,
Mhm.
and they're probably not happy with their performance either. They probably aren't enjoying themselves at work. And so, in some ways, as hard as it is, you may be serving them. The best way you could serve them might be to direct them elsewhere.
We certainly hope so. I mean, I hope that everyone that works on this team, whether they leave us out of the desire to move to a different position or they leave us because just their time here has ended with us, we only want the best for them. And I think that, we let go of people in a way that brings both integrity and respect in that it is very private and we're not talking about those reasons with anyone else.
Yeah, I love that. So, is it different when you came into a position where there was a staff you inherited? And then since then, you have recruited and hired people, under your leadership. Is it different when you're having to lead or correct or even let go someone that you inherited versus someone that you hired?
Oh, that's a great question, Brian. um, I don't know that I personally feel like it is for
Okay.
me. I think that for the team that was here when I was hired, they've shown me such grace.
Hmm.
And I think that they were so welcoming when I began in this role. But also that, it's personal. It's always personal, just sharing all the things that we've walked together as a team. I think that whether it's part of our long term team or whether it's part of our more recent team, it feels personal regardless.
Hmm. Yeah, there's no way around that, huh?
Hmm.
Yeah. So on the brighter side, you get the opportunity to hire people. It sounds like you get the opportunity to give some people their first job, out of school, their first chance in tourism, which seems like a wonderful role to play in somebody's life. What are you looking for when you recruit and when you hire?
Sure. So we're looking for a few things when we hire, and it's so exciting. I love that we get the opportunity to invite young, fresh, vibrant talent into our workforce pool. And, we're really looking for, first and foremost, honestly, I'm looking for somebody that has a kindness to them,
Mm,
and a relatability. I think that people do business with people that they like.
mm,
And I feel like it's hard to not like somebody that's just going to treat you with kindness and excellent customer service. And I think those things are important to our brand. Those things are important to hospitality, but they're also essential to the way that we do business in our community. We're looking for people that have good communication skills.
mm.
And I think that, we can see that from our first interaction with somebody when they apply for a job and a cover letter and what their resume looks like. And then transitioning into things like phone calls and interviews and making sure that they're representing us in the way that we would want to be represented, making sure that, as I'm traveling for my leadership position and in various capacities that I serve on other boards, I won't always be here. Does this person have the drive and the communication set to represent our organization in the way that we would so desire?
Yeah.
So, really, I think that, of course, we have goals for each individual position and the skill set that we hope that people have. But I have found that if we have somebody that's a good communicator and we have somebody that has a kindness and a warmth to them, we can usually teach and instruct them on this real skill set they're going to need. We just need sometimes what feel like very basic skills, but are actually
Yeah.
kind of hard to find.
It's amazing. Here's the secret, and please nobody get your feelings hurt. The day-to-day work of tourism is not that technically hard. Right.
Yeah.
But having the personality and the kindness and the openness and the empathy to really resonate with people, that is hard to find, and you can't teach it as a leader, right? Like they kind of have to come to you with that already built in.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So, in addition to your staff, you have a board. There's kind of a symbiotic relationship with your board. You lead them in many ways. You're also accountable to them. You also have a community, and they look to you for leadership. But also, I'm sure, have plenty to say about your leadership if they, don't always like it. So, how do you expand your leadership philosophy into those realms when you're not 100% in charge, but you have influence and you have a high degree of responsibility?
Well, I will say I have a fantastic board of directors, and I love my community so much. I am so lucky and fortunate. But as we look at how do we lead in that space, I think it's recognizing that the people that serve with us on our board are experts in their individual spaces, but they do lean on
Mm,
our team, and our community leans on our team to really be the experts when it comes to understanding the industry as a whole. So whether that's understanding trends that are taking place, or in our office, we work with more than 200 partners a year in our community, whether it's understanding what's going on with individual businesses or subsets of businesses. I think that what I've found to be successful is, leaning on research,
mm,
leaning on consultants when we are not an expert in a space and might need additional support, leaning on bringing in or taking our board on a field trip so that they can talk to somebody that is really living in these spaces day to day, so that we have a greater understanding as a whole on how we're collectively impacting our community, the strategy we need to be working together to build, and how we can really kind of just continue to uplift. And we're doing this really heavily right now in the space of workforce, and I am very excited about what lies ahead in that area.
yeah, that's an area of such need in our industry. So, am I hearing you say that working with those groups, you don't need to be the person that shows up with all the answers and all the knowledge. You don't need to be the genius in the room, as long as you can show up and say, "Hey, we were stumped by this, so I've done a lot of research, and here's what I've found," or "Let me introduce you to somebody who does know."
We're not the genius in the room. I mean, I think Brian, I I'm still learning so much. And I think that what I am passionate about is making sure that we've educated ourselves properly. So if we're reaching out into a space where maybe we don't have a skill set or haven't built a ton of experience, that we are at least coming from an educated perspective when we're talking with our community and our board members.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Can you think of anything leadership wise that you've learned that you think would apply to anybody in tourism across the board, whether they're a tour operator, a meeting planner, a travel agent, that goes universally beyond the realm of destination marketing?
Mm-hmm. Um, One thing that I really loved that I learned, and this came from, and I wish I could remember who, but it was from the Andy Stanley Leadership Podcast, is they posed this question that said, if you were to leave your organization tomorrow, what is the next person going to come in immediately behind you and fix and adjust?
Oh, wow.
And then why aren't you fixing or adjusting that today?
Wow.
And that was a real eye opener for me. It's something that as we reach the end of each year and are strategizing to the year ahead, I think about that at the end of every year and say, what went on or is going on right now that we need to be actively working to fix? And I think that sometimes when you're in the leadership space, you have a lot of control.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be lying if I said my type myself didn't love that sometimes. But,
Right.
it gets really easy to listen to your own voice when we need to be listening to other voices. And I think that self-reflection on what would somebody else look into this organization and see as an area of adjustment really creates a lot of self-reflection that I really enjoy. And I really enjoy figuring out what that is and how to fix it. And I think that's something that, regardless of what you do and what your role is in the hospitality industry, if you think on that, I think you'll find something.
Yeah. Now you've got my mind racing about what are all the things that I need to get to work correcting when we're done here.
No pressure, Brian.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. So what is the best way for people to find you, follow you, learn more about Milledgeville, or generally kind of get in touch?
Well, I do have a LinkedIn. My full name, Rebekah Snider, is my LinkedIn account. People are welcome to follow me on there. And then I am at Visit Milledgeville, where my email is rebecca@visitmilledgeville.com. And I am happy to share anything. I've learned many lessons the hard way. And I am happy to save others that pain. If there are any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Yeah, excellent. We will link to those resources in the show notes so people can come straight to you. So before we let you go, we have some questions we ask everybody, and these are just for fun. So maybe you already know these questions if you've heard the podcast. But when you book travel, are you booking a window seat or an aisle seat?
Ooh, window seat.
Yeah, for the view or for the headrest?
For the view, and I'm only 5'4", so I don't need the aisle seat with the long legs.
So premium economy is not necessary for you.
It's not.
Oh, that's good. What is one thing in your carry-on that you wouldn't travel without?
I am going to say I went to Alaska last year for the first time.
Wow.
And I bought some compression bags, and holy cow, they changed my life. I was able to pack so much more, which was a really not good thing when Delta weighed my bag, but it was incredible in terms of having all the apparel I felt like I needed.
That's brilliant. I'm going to have to look those up. I think my wife needs those as well, for sure. What is something you've seen or done on the road that you wish you could go back and experience again with somebody you love?
Oh, wow. That's a lovely question. I think that I would really love to be able to, I'd love to go back to Alaska. Honestly, it was incredible. It was majestic.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's stark. It's so much of it is untouched, undiscovered. Yeah, really, really amazing place. Last question. If you had a free airline pass and a week with nothing else to do, where would you be headed next?
Ooh, I think that I would probably choose London. I would love to go to England. Haven't been there yet.
Yeah, I hear great things. So put those plans in the books, start saving your pennies, make it happen.
That's right. Exactly.
Excellent. Well, Rebekah, it's been wonderful to have you. Thanks so much for joining us and sharing so much of your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us for this interview. I want to let you know that conversations like this are just part of what you will hear if you tune into a full episode of the Gather and Go podcast. When you listen, you'll get travel news you may not hear anywhere else, along with some really helpful road tips, some smart analysis, and maybe even a hot take from me about issues that are impacting travel right now. Now, you can hear this full episode along with many others by searching for Gather and Go in your favorite podcast player, or you can click on the link right below this video or one of the videos right here to my side. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.